Yo, what's up? Welcome to Kind of Funny Games Daily for Tuesday, July 28th, 2020. I'm one of your hosts, Blessing Adeoye Jr., and joining me is Imran, the Don Khan.
Howdy.
Imran, can I say that your beard is really making a presence? Like it is coming in nicely. It is strong.
It is getting to the point where it's actually like a little ridiculous. Like it is now officially at the point where food will fall in it, and I will not realize that until I look into a mirror at some point. And that's
that's a snack for later. That's pretty cool.
I mean, exactly. 2 weeks later, you find a lollipop in there.
In an era of social distancing and isolation, not a big deal. I can just be like, whatever, food's there. I don't give a shit. No one's looking at me. But if I were out and about, like I've to the point now. Well, like that's the thing.
And you got your mask on. You know, you get to hide all the.
The mask doesn't cover this shit. This mask is
it pops out of the bottom.
Like here, yeah.
Yeah, I like that you've got this little like. It looks like you've got a morning swoop. Like you just woke up.
Yeah.
Also,
that's
Imran,
awesome.
if I could pitch beard brushes. Because
Kevin was talking about this yesterday.
I have beard comb.
Oh, okay. And that looks like that's frankly doing a great job. So I'll retract my pitch.
They're useful. It actually like it makes it go from like a tangled bird's nest to an actual like shape of a beard.
It really does, and it feels really nice.
Works.
I'm very relaxed right now. I'm brushing my beard.
It's
surprisingly
a good thing to do.
I feel attacked as the only person here without a beard. And like I tried to attempt it at the beginning of quarantine. I was like, all right, this is giving me my time. I'm gonna go through the shitty phase of first growth of a beard, and then very quickly after like a week and a half, I gave up because of the itches. And periodically, every now and then, I'm like, all right, maybe this time's the time. I just can't commit. You know, I can't do it.
Bless, I'm just saying, it's a bit of an adventure in this boring time.
It's the easiest thing to do because you don't have to do anything. You just have to let it happen.
You actually do less.
Yeah.
Well, this is the thing that I realized is like it wasn't only the itches; it was the fact that like I felt it felt weird, you know, like not shaving because I feel like it almost felt like I was letting myself go despite despite me doing it purposely, right? Despite it not being like a I'm lazy thing or like I'm depressed thing, right? Like legit, I just wanted to try and let my beard grow, and I was for some reason it was making me not feel good about myself. Gross. Yeah, it was making me feel dirty. Yeah.
I mean that makes sense because like that's part of your routine, right? To shave and clean up. Everyone likes feeling nice and clean. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Imran, speaking of your physical appearance, what is your shirt? Because I'm seeing I'm seeing like the top part of it. I'm curious on what the actual design is.
Final Fantasy VI shirt.
Oh, I like it. I appreciate it.
The lightning is glowing just beautifully. Speaking of lighting,
Imran's looking great today.
Imran, we need to talk after this. I need to swing by your house and set up a nice little camera.
Yeah, we'll talk about this and figure out a good time for that.
Sweet. Enough about that. Let's talk about more confusion over Spider-Man Miles Morales, Cuphead surprise launching on PS4, and more, because this is Kind of Funny Games Daily, each and every weekday at 10 a.m. live right here on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. We run you through the nerdy news you need to know about. If you're watching live, you can correct us when we get stuff wrong by going to kindoffunny.com/you're wrong. If you don't want to watch live, you can watch later on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com, or you can listen later on podcast services around the globe by searching for Kind of Funny Games Daily. To be a part of the show, head to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, where bronze members or above get to write in, and silver members or above get the show ad-free with the exclusive daily post show. Housekeeping, tomorrow we're reacting live to the second Marvel's Avengers War Table stream right here on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. That's happening at 10 a.m. So the time that you would usually get Kind of Funny Games Daily, we're going to be reacting to that, and then you're going to get Kind of Funny Games Daily right after that, of course, with Greg Miller and Gary Whitta. Imran, are you looking forward to that Marvel's Avengers thing? I think I've seen you talk about like how you're kind of hype on that game. I think because of like Kamala and like you know how gameplay has kind of progressed since the last E3 showing we saw.
I think I am interested in playing it, but I don't. To me, it looks like the quintessential example of how you can throw $100 million into a blender and come out with nothing. Like, it looks fine. It just doesn't look interesting in any way besides the license.
Yeah.
Ooh, harsh criticism there.
I mean, he's not wrong. Like, in that
I don't disagree.
That's the thing that we all kind of have in common here, because me and Greg talk about it all the time, that like we're excited for that game, and that game is like for a game that we kind of expect to come out and be maybe a 7 or maybe a 6. Like, I think that I can easily see that game coming out and being an Anthem or even a Fallout 76 with less like controversy than those, because those were pretty controversial because people expect a lot more. But I can expect this game to come out and be within that realm, but still be exciting for us because it's Avengers and because we love those characters, and maybe even grow and be better over time.
Yeah, I just want to turn on my TV and have it make Avengers sounds at me. So this is a game to do that. Yeah.
And like, I mean, they're in a good place right now because I feel like they can only go up, right? Like I don't feel like there's anything they can show me tomorrow morning that'll make me go like, oh man, all right, you just unsold me on this game. Like I feel like all they can show now are like things that are like, okay, cool, this move that Hulk does looks awesome, or this costume for Captain America looks interesting. Like I feel like they can only intrigue me from here.
This is the place, like in the hype cycle, where I would start introducing new characters or new costumes, like stuff that has some fan service aspects to it. And people are like, okay, yeah, I like that one Spider-Man variant. I'm going to buy this game.
Exactly. So tune in tomorrow morning, and you'll get to see our reactions to that. Later this week, of course, we're having a major funny. That means Thursday you can join Greg and Major Nelson for We Have Cool Friends. Friday, Major Nelson joins Greg for Kind of Funny Games Daily, and then Saturday, Major Nelson joins Snowbike Mike, Gary Whitta, and Alanah Pearce for the Kind of Funny Xcast. 3 days straight of Major Nelson content. Get hyped. That's all happening right here on youtube.com. So it's kind of funny. youtube.com. So it's kind of funny games, and twitch.tv/kind of funny games, and also podcast services around the globe. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Mohammed and Blackjack. Today we're brought to you by Brooklinen, but I'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin with what is and forever will be the Rope Report. It's time for some news. We have 5 stories today. Starting with our number 1. Imran, you remember back in June, so long ago, when we had that PlayStation presentation, and Spider-Man Miles Morales was introduced to the world. We were all very excited about it, right? A new Spider-Man game that's focused on Miles Morales. Then the day after, we got a follow-up from an executive over at Sony who was like, oh yeah, Spider-Man Miles Morales is basically going to be just Spider-Man PS4, but with like DLC attached. And that made the internet blow up for a day until we got the confirmation that he was actually incorrect. What if I told you that there's even more confusion today about what the heck Spider-Man Miles Morales is?
Lay it on me, Bless.
So I'm pulling this from VG247. Sony may have undersold Spider-Man Miles Morales. This is Sherif Saed. The confusion about Spider-Man Miles Morales continues. Spider-Man Miles Morales may yet include an upgraded version of the base PS4 game. The news this time comes from the latest issue of Game Informer magazine. In a special feature about PS5 games and the June Games event, the magazine states that Miles Morales comes bundled with a remastered version of Spider-Man. That's right, Spider-Man PS4. Quote, Spider-Man Miles Morales isn't a traditional sequel, since it comes bundled with a remastered version of Insomniac's Spider-Man that takes full advantage of the PS5 hardware, it reads. Sony has not explicitly said whether or not Miles Morales comes with a remastered version of the main game, just that it's a new story with a new hero in the same city. It's possible that has been that has been the plan all along, to be announced at a later date, perhaps. Another likely explanation is that Game Informer could have been likely confused by the poorly worded statement a Sony executive made following the event. A statement developer Insomniac later clarified, confirming that Miles Morales is a standalone game. Obviously, this doesn't preclude the existence of a bundle with the base game, possibly as a way to sweeten the deal or justify a $60 price tag. So, Imran, Spider-Man Miles Morales possibly getting a bundled in Spider-Man PS4 that is taking advantage of the PS5 hardware. What are your thoughts? Do you buy it?
So no, I don't buy it. I think based on what I know about the production of that magazine, that was probably written the day of the event and went into editing, and that was probably a chaotic issue anyway, because that was Andy's last issue. That was also the issue that like a number of people were leaving. So there's undoubtedly mayhem at the Game Informer offices. I would bet that was just a thing that slipped through the cracks that did not get edited as well as it should have. And then now we kind of have the story from there. That said, I would not be shocked if this were actually, like, it happened to be true. That they do also include a remastered version of Spider-Man PS4, because like they've been showing off to demonstrate PS5 tech Spider-Man as their example of like, look at all the stuff you can do with the new SSD, the new ray tracing, and all that as demos for Spider-Man. So if they did have a remaster ready, that would be the game I would assume they do.
Yes, and I'm with you there. That I think this makes sense in the sense that if you did want to charge full price for Spider-Man Miles Morales, with the knowledge that this game is probably going to be more akin to a Uncharted Lost Legacy, or more akin to a Infamous First Light, where it is smaller than what Spider-Man PS4 was. If you wanted to go all the way, I think this makes a lot of sense. Especially because this is a thing that's like not unheard of, right? Like I remember South Park: The Fractured But Whole. If you pre-ordered that, you'd get South Park: The Stick of Truth. Yeah, Stick of Truth bundled in with that game. And so like, it's not a crazy thought. The idea that, oh yeah, Spider-Man PS4 is going to take advantage of the PS5 hardware, and like, that's going to be a reason for people to want to show up and pick up Spider-Man Miles Morales at launch. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think all of that would work, and all of that would actually be pretty exciting. I don't know if it's real, is like the one thing that I'd say.
If I were Sony and I had that project ready, like I had a remastered Spider-Man, I'd be like, yeah, toss it in, why not? But if you don't, if it requires much extra work, I'd rather just put that work towards Spider-Man 2 or whatever they end up calling it. So yeah, there was a recent era thread about this yesterday, and Schreier was in there, like heavily implying that Miles Morales is also going to come out on PS4. Who knows? But if that's the case, then it would be weird for PS5 to not have a remaster of Spider-Man as well, and they could just sell two like Spider-Man Game of the Year edition whatevers, like full package Spider-Man games on both consoles.
I think all this also does beg the question of how is PlayStation going to do, or how's PlayStation going to tackle like games that are previous gen games that are either remasters or taking advantage of the new system? Because we know about backwards compatibility. We know pretty much how that's going to work, right? That's going to boost PS4 games or previous gen games in order to take advantage of certain elements of the PS5 hardware. But a game like Spider-Man PS4, for example, like that's a game that, like you said, they've been showing around. They've been using that as the example of, oh, hey, look at how the SSD can cut down load times. Oh, hey, look at how the hardware can do this or that. That's a game where I think that game would make a lot of sense as, hey, let's make some sort of definitive or remastered version on the PS5 hardware. Like that makes complete sense to me. But how do they then do it? Like, because Xbox in this sense kind of has the advantage in terms of where we're at in the conversation, in terms of how the two companies are handling both these things, where Xbox is very much on the consumer friendly side of, hey, smart delivery will take care of this for you, right? Like games that are taking advantage of the Xbox Series X, like, in a bigger way that is outside of just a backwards compatible kind of thing, like you will get through smart delivery. You'll get for free. You'll have both versions of that. On the PlayStation side, I don't see that being as clear cut, which I think would lend to the idea that, again, Spider-Man PS4 bundled in with Spider-Man Miles Morales, not a bad idea. But how does that then reflect the other first-party titles and how PlayStation looks at this overall? Because should I expect Horizon Zero Dawn to have a PS5 version? Should I expect Ghost of Tsushima to have a PS5 version? Or should I just expect those games to be backwards compatible and just play them through that?
I mean, yeah, I imagine Sony is very deliberately trying not to have a policy because they want to have exceptions to that policy, and yeah, we don't know if there will be a Ghost of Tsushima PS4 or PS5 version. I'm playing The Last of Us right now, and I'm like, I kind of wonder if I should be playing this right now or just wait 6 months and see what happens. But at the end of the day, like, it does behoove Sony to be able to let new owners play their old games, but this time they're all in on backwards compatibility, so they don't necessarily have to make remasters. Whether they will or not is a different question. But Final Fantasy VII is a very good example because I am positive there's going to be a PS5 version of that game, because I'm sure somewhere in Square Enix's offices they're going like, why should Xbox and PC pay for new versions but PS5 should not? So I bet that they do a remaster, and I bet that pisses people off. So someone's gonna have to initially take that hit on, hey, we're not doing smart delivery, we're just gonna make a new version. And once they do that, then it's going to be easier for everyone else to do it. So why not let Sony do it?
Now, a follow-up question based on the Jason Schreier thing and based on the Reset Era thing. Do you think? Oh, what do you think? Do you think they're going to put Miles Morales on PS4?
If I were Sony, I wouldn't. I would try to use it as incentive for the PS5, like that. I would not be shocked if they did. As far as I know, okay, I don't want to say that. Well, I know Miles Morales started development right after Spider-Man PS4. I don't know on what console it started development on. So
okay,
theoretically, it could be like there could be a PS4 build of that game somewhere. But again, for like business reasons, if I were Sony, I would say no. But also, there's 120 million PS4s and 20 million copies of Spider-Man PS4 out there. If you want to make game sales, it's not a bad way to do it.
I think that I'm with you on the idea that there could be a PS4 version of Spider-Man Miles Morales. That game could have started development on PS4. I think that's a very plausible thing.
Right.
But yeah, from a business strategy perspective, I don't think they do it. Like, I don't think it would make sense to do it in the sense that, one, Spider-Man Miles Morales is your big first party game that you have on PS5 at launch, right? Like, you don't necessarily want to get in the way of their like money the message or give people a reason to want to play on their PS4. I want to play that game on their PS4. And also, I feel like that then also muddies the message in terms of what we've seen, what we've seen from how they've talked about Miles Morales and how they've how they talked about how it takes advantage of the PS5 system, right? Like, they've talked about the technical stuff, they've talked about load times, they've talked about I can't remember if they talked about ray tracing specifically, but they've talked about certain hardware things that Spider-Man Miles Morales takes advantage of to be a better Spider-Man game. If that game then comes out on PS4, I feel like that then kind of gets in the way of like, oh wait, so is this built from the ground up for PS5, or is this really a PS5 game, or how do we then how does the audience receive that? I think that is the reason they end up not doing it.
Yeah, I suspect that Sony, they've made statements of, we're doing PS4 or PS5 exclusives, but they never actually said, hey, we're not doing any cross-gen games. So I could reasonably believe that this would be like their one and done. Microsoft has kind of gone the other direction with it. Is they said they were going to do every year of they're going to do like a year or two of all first-party games being cross-gen, and then like at the Xbox show, they kind of backed off that by showing this game is only Series X, or this game is only Series X and PC. So I imagine both of them are trying to figure out the best footing for making a generational transition in an area or in an environment where it's kind of iffy what's going to happen next, like what adoption will be, how well you can actually ship or sell consoles in a retail environment right now. I can understand the hesitance to like really commit to one thing right now. So I'm not going to stake claim either way on Miles Morales, but I think if I were Sony and I were trying to sell the PS5, that would be the game that I say, no, this is only PS5. Like, don't worry about it. Buy this console to play this game.
Imran, let's shift gears from PlayStation to Nintendo. Story number 2, Animal Crossing is getting a new summer update. This is from Andrew Webster at The Verge. The promised second summer update for Animal Crossing New Horizons is coming very soon, and it brings with it some exciting changes. According to Nintendo, the two big gameplay additions are the ability to dream and new fireworks shows. Meanwhile, for Nintendo Switch Online subscribers, a cloud backup system is also coming, so you won't lose your island. For dreaming, Nintendo says players will be able to take a nap in any bed in their house. Quote, while dozing off, you may find yourself in a strange realm where you'll be greeted by Luna. Luna offers visits to other islands as a dream, and with her help, you can share your island as a dream with others too. She'll grant those who share their island a dream address, which players can exchange and use to visit each other's islands in a dream. In dreams, nothing is permanent because nothing you do is saved, so explore to your heart's content. End quote. The fireworks show will be a regular occurrence, meanwhile taking place every Sunday evening in August at 7 p.m. local time. Players will be able to buy raffle tickets during these events to earn prizes. Perhaps the biggest part of the update is the long-requested option for players to back up their islands via cloud saves. Here's how Nintendo describes the feature. Quote, Nintendo Switch Online members can enable the new island backup service, which automatically uploads islands and user save data to the internet at certain times. If your Nintendo Switch system is lost or damaged, you may be able to recover your island paradise as long as you've enabled island backup. In the event of loss or damage, contact Nintendo consumer support or contact Nintendo consumer support about restoring the island and user save data on your new or repaired Nintendo Switch system. After your island data or individual player data is restored, you can get back to building your island community. I'm then pulling in a question from Sapphire, who writes into patreon.com, says kind of funny games, just like you can, and says, "What's up, Bless and Imran? It's finally happening. Backup saves are coming to Animal Crossing, and I just want to know, why did it take this long? We know Nintendo is an odd company, but why not have this feature available at launch? Would love to know what you think. Thanks." So Imran, you play Animal Crossing. You're very much aware of like the weirdness with Nintendo not allowing for cloud saves with Animal Crossing up until now. What do you think took them so long? Why now?
So they're weirdly precious about the economy of Animal Crossing, about item duplication specifically. They did this too with Animal Crossing 3DS, where like originally you couldn't back up the SD or the save from the internal 3DS memory to an SD card, which is what I ended up doing, and I ended up losing my entire town because it just wasn't allowed. God. And they ended up changing that eventually. But yeah, it's them being strange about item duplication, and it's so weird they care so much about that because no one else cares that much. Like the items aren't that rare, and if you do really need one, you can make bells fairly easily, so it's not impossible to get like rare items. But this one is weird because this is just a data backup and recovery. And in a specific instance of if you lose or like your Switch breaks, then you have to call Nintendo support and they will take care of it for you. But if you, let's say, buy a new Switch or buy a handheld version like a Switch Lite, you can't transfer it yet. That's not a thing yet. They still say that's coming later this year, but you can't move your island from one console to another on your own. I remember Brie Larson, when she's been doing this like YouTube channel, that was one of the things she was complaining about is she has a Switch Lite. She wants to sometimes just move the Animal Crossing island on her Switch Lite, and she can't. I think that's still coming down to their weird economic thing of, hey, we don't want anyone to do item duplication. And I think the resounding answer of the Animal Crossing community is, fuck off, who cares? Like, just let us do the thing. Like, anyone who takes advantage of that is going to be minuscule to begin with. Mm-hmm. I don't think you don't need to imprison all these other people in this weird save jail to stop that like small minority.
Do you think this is them basically giving it up and being like, all right, you guys win. We understand, y'all want this. Or do you think this is the thing they're going to do at some point anyway?
They announced this just before launch, I want to say, when people were like, hey, this not save thing sucks shit. So I think this is them going like, okay, well, we'll go a little bit further, and also we have to actually like make it, but we're not going to go all the way like the cloud saves thing that you want, because one, that just seems too simple for Nintendo. Two, I don't think they'll ever give up the ghost completely on that. They're going to find some way to stop it. Like at launch, there was a glitch where if you were spinning something on a table and someone grabbed it, then it just duplicates the item. That got patched out immediately, like within days, while there were still things about the game that were actually like still broken. So this is the thing they care strongly about in a way that like Splatoon 2 doesn't have cloud saves either, and at this point obviously is not going to have cloud saves. So I think there's just some things Nintendo's going to be weird about, and they'll always be weird about that.
The dream stuff and the fireworks stuff I think is also interesting. The dream stuff specifically, because like I feel like that's a very Nintendo thing to be like, oh yeah, we're introducing dreams, which that's gonna be your way of visiting other people's islands without having to like fuck around with anything, right? Just using their dream address. That seems like a cool thing. Does dreams or fireworks do anything for you in this?
I mean, no, because I only ever visit like friends or best friends anyway, people I know. I don't visit anyone's like random stuff. So the idea of, oh, well, this is impermanent, so I can just do whatever I want, doesn't really do much for me, because the idea of impermanence in Animal Crossing doesn't jive with the way I play the game. I want to go to someone's island and see cool stuff I want. So I feel like this is an issue solved by the best friends process, but I don't. It seems cool. It seems like an interesting way, a good framing device on a problem I don't understand why they're trying to solve. But otherwise, it's a neat little charming thing.
Do you have any what's your biggest ask for Animal Crossing right now, if you have one? Because I know I feel like Animal Crossing is this thing that definitely has blown up this year, especially with stay at home and all this different stuff, right? But I feel like at this point in July has finally seen somewhat of a dip in terms of people aren't as excited about it as they were at launch and the months after launch, right? Is there a thing you think Animal Crossing can do, I guess, in the next few updates that'll get people to that same level of excitement, or do you feel like that wave has kind of passed by now?
I mean, I assume at some point they're going to do a massive expansion. Like they've hinted there's DLC for this game, so there's stuff like actual items and things. On the 3DS, they released Happy Home expansion as a Happy Home Designer as a separate game. I would not be shocked if they release it as just like the main game here, like an expansion game here. So maybe they do that. The main thing I want changed is it takes so long to do certain things. Like just going to someone's going to the airport and going to someone's village takes forever, and it doesn't need to. It can be a lot faster. You could get there in fewer questions or fewer toggles or whatever. I would like them to start changing that, or at least be have an option for for the airport people to ask you hey, do you need to just quickly go somewhere or anything like that, or do you need us to give you the whole spiel every time? I don't think they won't because it's part of the game's charm, but it's one of those things. We were talking about in Ghost of Tsushima, watching the dual cutscene every single time.
Yeah.
It's okay, that's cool a couple of times. It gets a little, much every time. This one, you do it way more often, and it still takes forever. And they should look at minimizing the time you spend doing pointless things.
Imran, let's get into story number 3. And I feel like whenever me and you host together, there tends to be Ubisoft news. And I don't know what it is about me and you, or I don't know if it's just a Tuesday thing where Tuesday happens to be the day where Jason Schreier wants to publish. But we have more reports coming out of Ubisoft for story number 3. There was a canceled King Arthur game. This is from Jordan Oloman at IGN. A report has surfaced that claims Ubisoft was working on a King Arthur fantasy RPG directed by Dragon Age creative director Mike Laidlaw, which was ultimately canceled by Ubisoft's former chief creative officer, Serge Hasque. And I've never figured out how to actually pronounce it. And so I'm saying Hasque because I want to be fancy. But yeah, Hasque. According to Bloomberg, Dragon Age's Mike Laidlaw was hired to direct the development of a new Ubisoft RPG known as Avalon, a quote, big budget adventure involving stories of King Arthur and his round table in a sword and sorcery fantasy world full of knights and legends, end quote. Alas, according to Bloomberg, sources familiar with the project, Avalon was canceled by Ubisoft's then chief creative officer, Serge Hasque. Hasque was apparently suspicious of the fantasy genre, telling the team that if it was to be a fantasy game, Avalon had to be better than Tolkien, referring to the hallowed Lord of the Rings franchise. The report's sources noted that Avalon was progressing well ahead of its cancellation and that it featured a cooperative multiplayer world similar to Capcom Co's popular Monster Hunter series. In an effort to save the project, the setting was reshaped into science fiction and Greek mythology, but Hasque was still unwilling to approve it, and it was canceled in 2019, with Laidlaw leaving the company shortly after. This isn't not the first story we've heard about Hasque's involvement in rejecting pitch projects. The executive was also allegedly at the center of scrapping or minimizing female roles in multiple Assassin's Creed games. And so yeah, this is another interesting one coming out of Ubisoft that we've had throughout the weeks. And yeah, again, it all comes back to Serge somehow when it comes to projects that didn't get greenlit or certain ideas, right? That haven't necessarily made it through and others that have when it comes to Ubisoft games. And I've been echoing this since the Ubisoft Forward that we had a few weeks ago that yeah, with him not being the chief creative officer anymore, I'm very curious now to see what games Ubisoft has come out in the next 4 years, let's say. Because I've also heard things about like yeah, he'd be able to greenlight or shut down games with like, one sentence, right? Like he had that kind of power. And so you get things like him not being a fan of fantasy games, thus Ubisoft not necessarily putting out a lot of fantasy games. And so this all kind of lines up. I don't know, Imran, do you have any thoughts on it?
One, that sounds cool as shit. I would have liked to play that game because like there are other Monster Hunter likes in the gaming universe, whatever you want to say, but like there's not a lot of high budget ones. And that I think is always like makes me bounce off like, oh god, what was the name of that indie free to play? Dauntless, yes. Like that kind of made me bounce out Dauntless. It's like I want it to look better, and it also doesn't feel quite like Monster Hunter. But I would have liked to try this because this sounds cool. I would have liked to, cooperative multiplayer against some dragons. That sounds fun. But I'm disappointed this doesn't exist, and it does. Everything I've heard about Ubisoft of the last like couple of years has always been like, yeah, we had this great project that eventually just didn't make it. And if you go back to God, I can't remember his name, but the guy who made, I can't remember the game name, but my memory is just dying on me. Remember the UB art game that was like a JRPG style game with all the dialogue? Child of Light. Yes. The director made it like he teased a Child of Light 2 in an announcement of the Switch port or something like that. But he eventually came out and said, like, yeah, stuff like that doesn't make it through Ubisoft anymore. It has to be a certain type of game to make it through to the green light process. So as that picture starts coming together a little bit better, we start getting more clarity. It starts looking like, I doubt Sergei Haskowet was the only person who is like blocking all this shit, but he does sound like he took a very major active role in making sure Ubisoft games are a particular thing. And to a large extent, over the years, it feels like they've gotten homogenous and repetitive. And I would have liked to see this because it would have felt like a diverse thing in their portfolio that does not feel that diverse anymore.
Exactly. And again, like that then reflects what are their games going to look like in 3 to 4 years or 5 years? Like that is the thing that very much excites me now. Also, is his name pronounced Sergey? Is it not Serge? Because I've been pronouncing it like the gym leader from Pokemon Yellow.
My understanding is that it's Sergey. I might be wrong.
I mean, I'm gonna look into that now because yeah, I've been thinking that he's a gym leader this whole time.
I think that's the French pronunciation of that name, but I don't know. I could be fucking wrong.
Story number 4. Cuphead is surprise launching on PS4 today. This is from Michael Mcwhertor at Polygon. Cuphead, the stylishly animated run-and-gun shooter that debuted on Xbox One and Windows PC, is coming to PS4. Studio MDHR announced a PS4 port of Cuphead on Tuesday with a surprise twist. It's out today on the PlayStation Store. The PS4 version costs $19.99. Xbox fans are also getting an update for Cuphead. The developer is adding a digital art gallery, behind-the-scenes commentary features, and a playable soundtrack to the game. The developer did not provide a release date for the update. The studio is currently working on an expansion for Cuphead called The Delicious Last Course, or DLC for short, which was originally scheduled for release in 2019. Studio MDHR did not provide an update on DLC's release date, other than to say the studio is, quote, still working hard on it, but it's taking us a little longer than we thought. Maya Moldenhauer of Studio MDHR said that the game's DLC will be available on all platforms on day one in an interview with Jeff Keighley. Imran, this is very exciting stuff. For me, this means that I'm gonna replay Cuphead on PS4 and hopefully finally finish it because I got halfway and I got dominated by a boss. But yeah,
which boss was it? You remember?
It's the dragon with like multiple heads.
Oh, that guy's super easy. What do you do? Like
really?
Oh, well, okay.
I
played that game when it was like the charge shot was still broken, so I can't say super easy because like I basically played through with an OP weapon. But I understand where you're coming from because there was a point where I was like, oh fuck it, I'm done, and I eventually came back to it like a year later and beat it. I think there's a mad scientist robot that was really kicking my ass. But yeah.
See, I got to the like the carnival boss, which was like the roller coaster one, and I was like, all right, certainly there's not gonna be a boss that's more difficult than this one because that one took me a lot of tries to get. And yeah, I got past that one, got to the dragon. I was like, no, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. This is too difficult. I never went back and beat it, though I gotten really close quite a few times. So there's gonna be an excuse for me to come back to it. Are you gonna play Cuphead again on PS4? Is that something that appeals to you?
I beat that game once, and I think that's good enough for me. when Delicious Last Course comes out, I'm gonna be hella into that. But
yes, 100%.
I'm just not that. I don't feel like ever revisiting that game unless, for example, I co-opted it with somebody. That would be fine. But I don't think I got everything I needed it out of the first time.
Damian writes in to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and says, "Hey, Blessed Imran, with the news of Cuphead out on PS4 today, what do you think this could mean for the Delicious Last Course that hasn't been discussed for some time? Could this release be the catalyst for an announcement to ensure the maximum install base? Could the DLC now get the resources needed to finish with PS4 out of the way? Or do we think a separate team was working on the port? Have a wonderful day, gents." This is an interesting question, and I think I have a few theories. I just think there's a lot going on with that property that's probably delayed DLC over and over again, right? Because like we got the announcement of it, I want to say like 2 years ago, and it was supposed to come out last year, and it's just not come out. And I think one, they're probably working on this port. Two, we have the Netflix series that is being worked on that I'm sure Studio MDHR has probably some active involvement in. And I think with all of that, certain things take priority, and I think both those things, like the PS4 port and a Netflix series, probably take priority over a DLC, which can probably come out, this fall or next year and still get the same level of excitement and hype because it's Cuphead and because people want more content from that game.
Yeah, I agree. I imagine that like other stuff took priority, but I also think that DLC probably takes a long time. The last time I heard about it, they described it as like basically Cuphead 2. So I've been kind of waiting for them to like maybe drop the other shoe on that and say like actually like Hollow Knight Silk Song. Like this was DLC at one point, but now it's, a sequel. Based on what they're saying now of like it's coming soon, makes me think that like, oh yeah, no, they're still gonna make it as DLC.
It's still DLC.
Yeah,
yeah, that would make sense.
Which, by the way, I realized last night that the acronym DLC, the like Delicious Last Course.
Oh yeah,
it's like I don't know how that didn't occur to me. I don't know how I didn't see that for the last 2 years.
I mean, they're clever over there. They know what they're doing.
Apparently.
But yeah, you make a good point there that like Cuphead takes a long time to make. Like even the original Cuphead, right? Like that game was announced. I can't remember the year it was announced, but it took a while for it to come out because with the style that they're going for,
I want to say.
Was it announced in 2014 and then it came out in 2017?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, and so like with what they're doing with Cuphead, right, and what the assets look like and what that game is, that takes a long time because they're animating everything, right? Like they're drawing everything. They're going for a specific style that means that this thing is going to take forever. And so that compounded with the fact that there's just other things going on that probably takes priority over the DLC, I think means that that thing got pushed and pushed and pushed. And I mean, I think we should all still have hope for it. Like I don't think it's a case of it disappearing into the ether. I think eventually we're going to get that DLC. But maybe you might have to wait like another year. Is probably my guess.
Yeah, they said in the coming months they'll talk more about it, so I assume it will be next year-ish.
Maybe it'll drop with that, and I feel like it might have been you or somebody else that thought of this, but it might drop with that Netflix series, right? Like that could be like a good synergistic thing to do.
And they did also confirm that the DLC will come to all platforms, which means Switch, PS4,
yes,
Xbox, PC. I was thinking about this and like I kind of zoned out a little bit thinking about it. Like, is Cuphead the only guest character that's on every console? His game is on every console in Smash Brothers, I mean.
Oh, it's Smash Brothers. Oh,
because he's a Mii costume, so not technically a guest character, but like Fallout isn't on Switch. Ezio games, were the Ezio games on Switch?
Okay, so you're talking about specifically like the Mii costumes.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say the Dragon Age hero. Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I feel like Ezio's got to be on Switch, right? Kindoffunny.com/you're wrong if you have info on that, because like
was Undertale on Xbox?
Assassin's Creed 3 is on Switch, so Ezio's got to be. Undertale on Xbox is also an interesting one. I don't know if it is. It's on PlayStation, it's on Switch for sure. It's on PC. I'm not sure if Undertale's on Xbox.
Yeah.
Again, kindoffunny.com/you're wrong. Let us know.
I think it could be Cuphead, but I'm sure I'm missing somebody in my head.
Let us know if you have answers on that, because I'm very curious. Speaking of things that may or may not be happening, though, story number 5, that Hideo Kojima horror game that we talked about yesterday on the show may actually not be happening. This is clarification from Junji Ito, who we talked about yesterday. This is from Adam Bankhurst at IGN. Junji Ito has clarified that he and Hideo Kojima have only discussed working together on a new project at a party, and has apologized to both Kojima and the fans for offering potential false hope. Writing on Twitter, Ito explained that his discussion with Kojima took place at a party and was less of an offer than a passing remark from the game director. Quote, I said casually that I received an offer from Mr. Kojima, but in reality, it was a remark made at a party where he said, quote, if there is an opportunity, I may ask for your help. I apologize to Mr. Kojima and all the fans to whom I may have given false hope, end quote. Cool. Like this, I think this is one of the things that we threw around yesterday when we talked about it. That like, I personally think a horror game from a Kojima would be awesome, and I somewhat expect his next game to be a horror game because I feel like that's something he'd want to do. But this is one of the possibilities we threw out there that like, yeah, this could have just been like early talks, or this could have just been like a passing thing that happened.
Kojima
so this isn't necessarily surprising.
He has a tendency to do that, of like ask people, would you like to be in our game? And then like it never materializes, or they like, I think Justin was one of the people, Stephanie Justin, like he asked her to be in Death Stranding and then never contacted her again. So I expect that, yes, whatever horror game he is working on will probably have Junji Ito. I would bet that it's still so early that it's not been greenlit yet. Yes. Like maybe internally, but not, they haven't picked up a publisher or whatever. So this to me, it reads like Junji Ito, like not saving face, just kind of covering his ground of going like, yeah, no, this is not an official project. I'm not announcing I'm working with Kojima on a horror game.
Yeah, I'm not confirming anything.
It just, we're in talks about a thing. Who knows?
Imran, I'm really excited to see if this Hideo Kojima horror game actually ever comes to fruition. But the announcement for that is probably so far away. If I want to know what's coming out to Mom and Grop shops today, where would I look?
The official list of upcoming software across each and every platform is listed by the Kind of Funny Games Daily Show host each and every weekday.
Yeah. Out today, we got Ageless for Switch and PC, Other Side for PS4, Xbox One, and PC, Cuber's Arena for PS4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC, Destroy All Humans for PS4, Xbox One, and PC, Demon's Tilt for PS4, Made of Skur for PS4, Xbox One, and PC, Samurai Showdown Neo Geo Collection for PS4, Xbox One, and Switch, Grounded for Xbox One and PC, Mega Dimension Neptunia 7 for Switch, Lost Wing for PS4, Escape Game, Fort Boyard for PS4 and Switch, Rugby Challenge 3 for Switch, Interrogation You'll Be Deceived for Switch, Anatona for PC, Rocketbots for PC, Schwerpunkt for PC, Inmaze for PC, Hellraisers for PC, Skater XL for Steam, PS4, and Xbox One, and then Cuphead is out today for PS4. New dates for you. Pistol Whip has been delayed on PSVR by 2 days. It is now coming out on July 30th instead of today. And that's a pretty funny one because we talked about that on the PSLU XOXO, which went live this morning for our new segment within a segment, PlayStation Picks. You know, and I talked about how hyped I was for Pistol Whip to come out today. Turns out it's out in 2 days, so be on the lookout for that. Also, new dates. The Analog Pocket is coming in May 2021, and it'll be available to pre-order for $199.99, so $199.99 on August 3rd, starting at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Spitlings is coming out August 4th on PC, PS4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch for $14.99. A new character skin pack is coming to Mortal Kombat 11 as part of the Aftermath expansion on August 6th. And then lastly, for new dates, Big Farm Story premieres on August 20th on Steam. Deal of the day for you, beginning today, Twitch Prime is offering 7 more arcade classics from legendary video game developer SNK as part of a special offer available exclusively for Prime members. Now it's time for Reader Mail. You can write into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames where you can get the show ad-free. And speaking of ads, this episode of Kind of Funny Games Daily is brought to you by Brooklinen. You've probably heard us talk about Brooklinen before. They're the home of the internet's favorite sheets, but their towels, they're also amazing. They give your daily routines a little something extra, and with varying levels of plushness, the towels of your dreams is waiting to wrap you up. And with all this extra time at home, it might be nice to invest in a little extra softness and absorbency. Kind of Funny's own Greg Miller himself loves Brooklinen towels. He says they're super soft and big. He also says that they dry him off and cover his shame. If you've been looking for ways to turn your bathroom into a miniature spa, like I have, Brooklinen's towels can help you find your zen. Brooklinen is the perfect place to find all your comforts for home, including ultra soft towels. They're so confident in their product that everything comes with a lifetime warranty. Use promo code GAMES for 10% off your first order at brooklinen.com. That's BROOKLINEN.com, promo code GAMES. Brooklinen, everything you need to live your most comfortable life. Imran.
Yes.
Sapphire writes in to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames.
Very uncomfortable dramatic pause. We're like,
oh, I know. You gotta love it.
You
gotta have the
dramatic
pauses.
Buttons locked up and whatnot. You know how it is.
No, Kevin, you good, man. You good. I just want to give you the time you need to do your thing, Kevin. Sapphire writes in to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames and says, "Hey, Blessed Imran. With the Nintendo League conversation from yesterday, something I didn't realize was that besides source code for games, there was also a lot of personal information being leaked. Private conversations, notes, and even a diary was leaked, which is totally not cool and clearly an invasion of privacy, even though all this was technically illegal. Would like to hear what you guys think about the personal information aspect of the leak, and if you think that Nintendo will continue to stay as quiet as they have been, especially in the post-leak world. Thanks, Sapphire." Imran, you're the one who's up to date on all the leak situation when it comes to the Nintendo Giga Leak, as it's been called now. Are you aware of like the personal information stuff that Sapphire here is talking about, and what are your thoughts on Sapphire's question?
I mean, so yeah, there's been like, when people work collaboratively on code, they will occasionally like put notes or conversations or things like that in there, and we're finding a lot of that too. Of like, I think in the Star Fox SNES code, there is a conversation between two developers that talk not great about women. So like it's a little disturbing to know that. And some like there's QA commenters, there's stuff like that with names and the companies they work for. I think Dylan Cuthbert, who worked on Star Fox, actually said like looking through this stuff is like looking through my personal diary, because it's a very personal thing for him that he never thought no one would ever actually see. So from that sense, yes, like it is ethically murky, but it's ethically murky top down. Like looking at all this stuff is amazingly illegal. Like not on looking at it's not illegal. All of it, getting it all was illegal. And the dissemination of it, as much as it is like very useful for a preservation perspective, very useful for like just knowing things that we would otherwise not know, moderately ethically murky. And I suspect like if I were on the other side of that, if I were one of the developers who was contributing the code, who was making those assets, who didn't think anyone would see like the shitty programmer art I drew for ArcSys or whatever, then I would feel upset based on how this is disseminated out there and is now like public information. That said, I do think there is value to it that now that it's out there, that I'm happy it's out there and that it exists, and now that we know things that we otherwise would not have known.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Like I think so much of it is murky and gray area, but I think that like it's a balance of two things. It's a balance of the fact that it is unfortunate that people's personal documents got out there, and that sucks. And that's stuff that I personally say should not have gotten leaked, right? Like if there's a way for whoever went in and leaked all of this to keep that stuff out of it, that probably would have been ideal, because like nobody should have their personal information just put out there like that, or their private diaries or whatever just put out there like that. That said, I think there's also, and this is on the other side of the murkiness of it, right? There's so much value in here, right? There's so much valuable information from this leak. There's an IGN article that I'm actually looking at right now that is the Nintendo Giga Leak, everything we know, and all the major discoveries. And it was written by Joe Screbbles, who goes into explaining like, okay, what is the Giga Leak? Like, how did it happen and all this stuff, right? And he goes into talking about how, like, there's like, as far as what's been found, right? Like the Super Mario 64 Luigi thing is really cool for everyone, right? Like that's a really cool inside look at a thing that didn't come to fruition, but so many people have had questions about, and so many people have wanted to know about, right? Like there's stuff about the canceled Pokemon MMO in there, early stuff for Zelda Ocarina of Time, the prototype Yoshi's Island. Like there's so much in there that is valuable for us to know about and learn about, and really cool for history, and really cool for like what video games are, especially from a company like Nintendo, who was there from the ground floor, and they're like essentially shaping what the video game industry would be in the early days. Like so much of this is really cool for that. But yeah, like it all comes with this murkiness of, all right, yeah, like when we're leaking everything, which means that yeah, like you get unfortunate situations of people's stuff being out there. I know for me, if I was one of those people, I'd probably be upset. I'd probably be like, yo, like what the fuck, man? You know, that's it's like leaking your work Slack channel or whatever, right? Like if it like that's stuff where it's like, all right, these are private conversations, and like, you know, it's unfortunate is the thing. Like that'd be unfortunate.
I mean, like
you know, for the people involved.
If I were a third party, because so like Nintendo famously keeps all the third party source code they have for games published on their systems, which is like when Square Enix couldn't make they couldn't find the source code for Secret of Mana and Sega Setsu 3 and all that to make the collection, they had to go to Nintendo, and Nintendo had to give it to them. That's why that game is exclusive to Switch. So it's important Nintendo keeps that, but if I were a third party and I knew Nintendo kept all this stuff that could be potentially embarrassing or potentially have proprietary technology that I don't want people to see, I would be very hesitant to give it to them. And that's where this thing starts like going down the path of, oh shit, this is going to be a problem in the future. Because now we're looking at preservation aspects that may not be entirely complete in the future because we can't trust that they won't disseminate to the wider audience. There's a Pokemon data mining site that very famously they look at the code themselves. Like I'm not enough experienced enough a programmer to be able to tell you exactly what it is they do, but they do it by like breaking open the games that are publicly available. Mm-hmm. They had to shut down because now they don't know. Like whatever information they get, they don't know if it's going to be like somebody looking at it with like actual programming skills and figuring stuff out, or if they think it's somebody hooked the source code and they just like they obtained it illegally, and now is just breaking open all that stuff. So yeah, like we are getting knowledge of like what beta Pokemon looked like, but at the same time we're losing a pretty valuable resource of people who are skilled enough to learn how these things work just based on what they can see.
Yes. To Sapphire's question here, right? Do you think Nintendo will continue to stay as quiet as they have been? I expect them to. Like, I don't really expect Nintendo to come out and comment on this at all, because Nintendo as a company is very protective as far as their IP, and protective as far as like how they talk about their IP and how outspoken they are about stuff that is internal. Like, you know, like when you look at how they handle ROMs being uploaded, for example, right? Like, and I mean, it's a thing they should do, because they're protecting, like they're keeping people from stealing stuff that they're putting out themselves, for the most part. You know, like Nintendo does not fuck around when it comes to that stuff. And so for something like this, that is so much of it being leaks and so much of it being stuff that is like, you know, especially with the personal stuff, right? I don't necessarily expect them to come out and make a statement about it, because that's not really the kind of company that Nintendo is.
Yeah, I think they're gonna just kind of ignore it and secure their own security and maybe try and like legally stamp down what they can, but they're not gonna be able to because it's out there. Like there's an IGN article about it. You can't put that genie back in the bottle.
There's not really a way for them to fix this, right? Like they can't take it down a YouTube channel or whatever. Like that, with the thing that you'd usually do to stop this kind of thing, like that, the cat's out of the bag. Like it's all over the place.
Are you playing that Mario 64 thing I sent you, Bless?
Not yet. I want to get into it. Can you explain for the people what that is, because it's really cool.
So this is not actually part of the illegal source code leak. This was people reverse engineered Mario 64 and started porting it to PC. And once you do that, you can start doing all sorts of crazy shit with it, like replace the models with what is identical to the SGI art from like the promo art for Mario 64 back in the day. So it looks better, like it runs better. I could see it like, so now that the Zelda source code is out, people will probably port Zelda to PC, port Ocarina of Time to PC. And once they do that, like Nintendo will probably be less hesitant or more hesitant to port those games or remake those games going forward, because now there's an existing PC version that is going to stand against theirs and it's completely free. So like even looking at the Mario 64 port that I'm playing, it's neat. I bet Nintendo, who is rumored to announce a Mario 64 port to Switch, is looking at that being like, God damn it. This is like people now have this. They have most likely a better version of this game that's like their main version of having on Switch is it's official and it's portable. And that might not be enough to get people to pay money for it.
But like, isn't that like a thing that would exist anyway? Like, I feel like I feel like we see so many, and a lot of this is like recreations, not based off the source code, and so that's probably the main factor. But we see so many people make Unreal recreations of Mario 64, like Unreal Engine, not like literally like Unreal, but like people have gone in and either made mods of Mario 64 or like their own versions of Nintendo games that function, as well, if not sometimes like in better or cooler ways than the original games. I feel like a lot of that is kind of akin to each other in terms of how Nintendo would look at it and be like, all right, how does this affect the remake that we want to put out? Like people have been making Pokemon games all day in terms of like making like Pokemon remakes or making their own version of Pokemon games. Like that's not necessarily going to stop us from remaking the Pokemon game, for example. I know it's Game Freak, which is different, but you know what I mean?
I mean, they get aggressive about it when it matters to them. Like they didn't care about another Metroid 2 remake for the 7 years it was in development. But once it was out and they were about to announce Samus Returns, they cared real hard and they took that thing down. So this, I think we've crossed a Rubicon of, oh shit, there's so much information out there that it's actually getting easier to actually port these games in a almost perfect way from their original version, but make them better. That I think it's going to become an issue for them in how they greenlight these projects in the future.
Imran, now it's time to squad up. Hockey Singh writes in to squad up with a squad up on PS4 and says, I mean, I generally play single player games, but if anyone needs help in any FromSoft games, I'm always game. And so if you want to play some FromSoft games with Hockey Singh, you can add them on PS4 with the username SSJ4Trunks. That is SSJ number 4 Trunks. So like Super Saiyan 4 Trunks. This is essentially the reference there. Now it's time for kindoffunny.com/you're wrong, where you write in, let us know what we got wrong as we got it wrong. Let's see here. Nanoball just writes in and says, okay, this is the PS I Love You, you're wrong, which usually I wouldn't read, but I'm gonna read it because it's interesting, right? Nanoball just writes in and says, you're wrong for PS I Love You. Bless, you accused me of not being a biologist. I am. And I graduated from Virginia Tech.
He's hacking you
microbiology.
Your phone, your call was like all frozen. You accused him of not being a biologist. No. Is that what you said?
Yes. Okay, so let me reread that, right? Nanobiologist talking about things I said on PS Love You, right? He says, bless, you accused me of not being a biologist. I am, and I graduated from Virginia Tech. Go Hokies. With 2 bachelor degrees, a BS in biology with a focus in microbiology, and a BS in nanoscience with a concentration in nanomedicine. Was one of 7 to be... Okay, now he's going on and now he's bragging. Nanobiologist, calm down. If what you're saying is true, I apologize. You're a real nanobiologist. Are you happy? One day, me and nanobiologists are gonna meet in the streets one day. Okay, let me tell you, Kevin.
To be fair,
if what you're saying is true, you don't even trust him. You know.
To be fair to Blessing, nanobiologist also comes with a year wrong later, and he misspelled biologist, which I feel like an actual biologist wouldn't do.
Never. That's the first thing they teach you. They write it on the wall. I've been in a biology class.
He wrote biologist. So I don't know.
Kevin isn't wrong. Kevin is also a scientist.
Blessing, I've said many times I was a scientist. I walked away from that life.
Let's see here. A lot of Kebabs writes in and says Sergey checks out because the author of Tintin, Hergé, is pronounced the same way. That's not the way it works.
That sounds like solid ass logic to me, dude.
That's not how spelling works. That's not the English. The English language is complicated, and I say that knowing that Sergey isn't an English name.
The romance language is complicated.
Let's see.
Oh my God, Zeus says Ezio Collection on Switch, but I didn't I looked it up and I don't see it anywhere. Like
Yeah,
the official website just says PS4. The Rebel collection is on Switch.
I'm getting conflicted reports because I'm seeing one person in here, Jesus, says Ezio Collection is on Switch, and then somebody else is saying Ezio Collection is not on Switch. And so,
bro, get that Switch and figure it out in the post show. You know what I mean?
Let's figure it out in the post show. And then lastly, KDG writes in and says, the Smash Brothers Mii costume is Altair, not Ezio, neither of which are in games on Switch. The only Assassin's Creed games currently on Switch are 3 Remastered, in Liberation, and the Rebel Collection. That's 4 in Rogue.
So you couldn't figure out later, huh? You just
listen. I start reading you're wrong, and I get.
Look, one of those games I'm pretty sure has Altair walking in like a dream sequence.
That's AC2.
Yeah, well, is that not in that list then?
That's not on Switch.
Are you sure that wasn't the United States Revolutionary War? Didn't that have one scene where Altair like has a flash, like he has like a flashback? No,
I don't
remember. That was Ezio.
I remember there's an AC2 United section where you're essentially playing as Altair's balls.
I'm sorry,
Do you not remember where like
true.
You play as Altair and like you see him impregnate a lady, and that's where his like story ends because it's all DNA memory.
You know, yeah, that sounds really familiar. Also, no, yeah, I'm gonna stop it there. I'll see you guys later.
one more. You're wrong. Emmy Crunch says, new date, Phantasy Star Online 2 is coming to Steam on August 5th. So there you go. And also Nailbox is now saying that the Altair segment you're talking about is in Assassin's Creed Revelations. That's it. If you're wrong, I'm cutting it there. No more you're wrongs.
I think we're gonna wait for an actual
as I speak.
We'll wait for an actual biologist to write that in and see what they say.
Ooh, sick burn, dude.
Tomorrow's KFGD hosts are as follows. You're getting Greg and Gary Whitta. And of course, this has been Kind of Funny Games Daily each and every weekday at 10 a.m. live right here on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames. We run you through the nerdy news you need to know about. We have a Patreon post show for those that are subbed at the silver level of patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. So stick around for that. Otherwise, until next time, Game Daily.